All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is the 21st Century Dentistry Podcast. I'm your host, John Harris, and with me today is Mr. Shay Berman of Digital Resources, very comprehensive marketing company, recently acquired. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not. We can edit this out if I need to, but acquired a company that I was worked very closely with out of Nashville called High Five Practice. Some people may be familiar with. Digital Resources, I believe, is located over on the West Coast.
West Palm Beach, Florida.
West Palm Beach, Florida. Okay, great. You're even closer then. I like you now. I'm just kidding. It seems as though a lot of our corporate relationships and corporate partnerships are West Coast based, and so I only get to see those folks like once, every so often. When I'm out
on the good side.
Yeah, but very good. So Shay, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of give us a quick introduction to Digital Resources so that our listeners know. The depth and breadth that your organization goes into.
Perfect. And I appreciate you having me on today. I'm very excited to have our conversation. But yeah, a little bit about us. So we are about 150 team members, mostly based out of West Palm Beach, Florida, but we do have team members all over the country, especially in our Nashville office as well now, which we took over from High Five Practice. We work with over 800 practices nationwide, and most of those practices come to us when they're concerned with new patient flow. They're frustrated that they're not bringing in the types of patients or cases that they want to be working on, or just annoyed with how they represent themselves online through like their social media or their website. So we have 17 different departments here at Digital Resource, ranging from multimedia, digital ads, SEO, website development, live chat, internal practice marketing. I can go on and on. But each department is very specialized in what they do. And our digital sales strategists, their job is to make sure they're fitting the right things that we do with the right practice. So seeing is Facebook ads going to be a fit, or is SEO based on the practice, the goals, the competition, their growth, how they can physically grow, where they want to grow. So we do everything very custom for the practices that we work with.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I want to have you on is because in various conversations that you and I have had about personal business ventures of mine, and then obviously as a resource for a lot of our clients around the Southeast, is you are one of the most insightful people in terms of marketing and having a holistic approach as opposed to a more isolated, singular focus. Like a lot of organizations out there, and I've heard clients say this, you've got to kind of piecemeal your marketing together because everybody's good at one thing, but nobody's good at everything. And when you guys bought out High Five, I was like, wow, man, that's a big deal, because one of the things that I really liked about High Five was they are embedded in the mechanics of the practice to support maximizing patient value, right? Like, I don't know if anybody that listens to this is familiar with Marcus Lemonis. He was the host of a show called The Prophet. I used to watch that quite a bit. I don't even know if it's still on, but one of the things that he always talked about was people, process, product. And when he would go in and rehabilitate these companies that were struggling, one of the things that he focused on was he said, listen, you got this consumer that walks in and they have all kinds of needs. They may have come to you for this one particular need, but there are other things they need too. So your ability to meet as many needs as possible, as elegantly as possible, is going to maximize the value of that consumer to your business. And so in a dental practice, there are a variety of products and services that their patients would benefit from, but to what extent are we maximizing each of those individual opportunities? And I would say that your average practice, very, very low.
Yeah, agreed. It's crazy how many people don't know that their dentist does Botox, or that their dentist is very good at placing implants. So they'll go different places when they already have this dental home that they don't realize they could be getting taken care of all of their needs there, whatever those needs might be, or at least a lot more of their needs than they probably typically already are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was interesting. I just got off a team call with a practice that I'm working with, and when we started working together a little over a year ago, they had 4,000 active patients. There was no capacity in their recare department. They couldn't get new patients into the schedule. Literally, like, it would be months before they could get. If I called their practice today, it would literally be 3-4 months before you could actually see me as a new patient. That's someone asking to give you their money. That's someone asking to become a customer of yours, and you have to say no for 3 or 4 months. They couldn't if you fell off the schedule, they couldn't get you back in, and they were in network with Medicaid. So when I saw the capacity issue, the number one decision that we made was to eliminate Medicaid. And naturally, their patient volume, their patient base has declined, but their annual patient value, the revenue generated per patient over the course of the last 12 months is almost tripled.
It's crazy.
That's the definition of smarter, not harder.
It's funny. I just went to a new dentist the other day for myself, and they're like, we can't get you in for 4 months. Happened to be a client. They figured out a way to get me in. But I was looking at the other patients. I asked them about what kind of patients they're seeing. Literally exact same situation. I'm the type of person who likes high-end dentistry. I like the cosmetic stuff, and they're seeing all these patients just filling these schedules when they could be bringing that higher quality in. So it's great that you identified that. And on our side, what we do is we make sure that the patients that stay in the practice, no matter what type they are maximizing that value in the practice, knowing what other services the doctor and the staff can provide, making sure that we're maximizing that patient opportunity in terms of dollars for the practice.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. I don't intend for this to be like a promotion or a sales pitch or anything like that. But you've got companies out there that are very good at SEO. You've got companies that are very good at website development, companies that are very good at digital media ads, Facebook, Instagram, Google ads. Not too many companies out there that I've seen really specialize in internal marketing. None, to my knowledge, that I'm aware of, have anything to do with internal marketing. And so you guys do specialize in SEO, website development, and digital media ads. And you're very comprehensive and robust in that area. And then your acquisition of High Five brought the internal component into the equation. So now you've got like this very robust, comprehensive approach that covers a marketing campaign or a marketing program from inside and outside.
That's right. And take us out of it for the sake of not being a sales pitch. When a practice looks to grow, they can look to grow their current patients that are already there and maximize those, or bring new patients in to get the type of patients that they want. If maybe they're not able to get more implants off the patient base they have because they've done tons of implants there already and they need to bring more externally. But for a practice just to look at their marketing internally and externally and think about where's going to make the best sense for them is a big opportunity that a lot of practices are not looking at. They're mostly looking external.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let me say this because this should help you. From my seat on the practice management side of the equation, a lot of times I enter into relationships and it's either, cash flow isn't optimal. They want to generate revenue to be able to invest in marketing, or there's some resistance there when it comes to investing in marketing because the cash flow is not quite there. That's sometimes there. I would have to say that the number one, first of all, let me say this. If dentistry is a very profitable business model, very profitable. That's why private equity is so interested in it for several reasons. A, it's profitable. You're looking at 40+% to the bottom line. Okay. Or for the owner, 40+% to the bottom line. You've got guaranteed built-in demand. Like it's not a business model where people want what you have to sell. They have to have what you sell. So you've got guaranteed demand. So for a dental practice to be struggling from a profitability standpoint, that's a huge red flag. It's like something's broken somewhere. Okay. One of the number one things, and I look like an absolute hero with a cape on when I come in and help them see this button and push this button. But it's not rocket science, and it's capacity. It's capacity is king. Yep. If a practice isn't able to accommodate, new patient demand, like they can't get new patients into their schedule. If a recare patient falls off their schedule and they can't get them back in, or they've got SRP that they can't get into their schedule, that's immediately going to start impacting their practice in a negative way. And the first place is going to impact their practice profitability, because your patients that are consistently coming through recare and have been for the last 6, 12, 18, 24 months, they've gotten most of the dentistry done. They're healthy for the most part. And so if your schedule is full of healthy patients, there's not a lot of dentistry. There's not a lot of restorative care that's coming from those patients. Your treatment conversion is going to decline incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And that's where most of your profitability comes from. Very little profitability comes from hygiene services. The vast majority of the dental practice's profitability is coming from restorative. So there's not a lot of restorative dentistry. There's not a lot of profitability, i.e. there's not a lot of cash flow.
Yeah, they're just covering expenses if they're just working on that end.
Yeah. And so I would have to say that the number one area of opportunity that I encounter most of the time is just mismanaged hygiene schedules and just a lack of capacity to accommodate demand. People are trying to come in and they just can't. We know that the market wants convenience, affordability, and comfort. And there's no better way to meet those needs elegantly and quickly than to ensure that you've got sufficient capacity to grow, because practices with capacity grow and practices without capacity don't.
So what's the first thing you look at, John? Do you look at like the physical capacity as far as chair space, or do you look at like the team members, or is it a combination of both right off the bat? Like, what are you evaluating first?
I'm looking at their total active patient base. What percentage of those patients are consistently coming through recare? I'm looking, those are just traditional, that's practice management 101, right? Yeah. Like annual patient value, treatment acceptance. Like I'm looking at all that stuff. But the problem with that stuff is that stuff takes time to fix. That takes time to repair. Like if a practice is really struggling in rolling dentistry, that's not a button that you can push and all of a sudden they're enrolling twice as many cases. Yeah. And I don't care what the bullet points on the continuing education event says they're going to teach you how to do. They're not going to teach you how to double the number of cases that you're enrolling overnight. It's not going to happen. Okay. Because the biggest hindrance of treatment acceptance isn't a system of language, it's confidence. And you've either got confidence or you don't. And if you don't, it takes time to develop that. That doesn't happen overnight. So I look at all that stuff, but the things that make the biggest difference in my experience, the things that cause practices to double in 6 months or triple in 90 days. I mean, I've seen a variety of different, just like huge success stories. I've got a practice that went from $30,000 a month to $90,000 a month in less than 6 months.
Wow.
Practice has gone from, $800,000-$900,000 a year to $3.5 million in 2 to 3 years. The number one thing that creates that kind of growth is capacity. Well, let me take that back. Capacity is one of them. And then the other one is what I would refer to as the, if you imagine you draw like a vertical line and a horizontal line, and on the vertical axis at the top, you've got comprehensive, and at the bottom, you've got limited. So on the top side, you're very comprehensive: endo, ortho, implants, third molars, IV sedation, Botox, sleep. Okay. On the bottom is very limited: crown and bridge.
Yep.
On the right side, you've got proactive, right? Very proactive clinical philosophy. We're not watching anything. I'm not watching it get worse, right? I'm not watching it stay the same. Like we're taking action, like we're proactive. Higher crown to filling ratio, higher treatment conversion, typically a more comprehensive clinical suite. On the left side, very reactive. Wait till the last minute, a lot of 3 and 4 surface fillings, a lot of watching. I'm no judgment, no criticism. I mean, clinical philosophy is everything. That's a clinician's identity, yeah. Right? It's clinical subjectivity. So whatever you think is right, it's right. Do that. But what I can tell you is if you're in the upper right-hand quadrant where you're comprehensive and proactive, you're going to outproduce the bottom left-hand quadrant 10-1.
Oh, for sure.
So if you're this dentist and you buy this practice that's been in this environment for the last 10 years, you're going to find 5 to 10 times more dentistry on those patients than this guy was finding and doing. So you're a lot more productive. So if I'm this guy, I would buy this practice every day of the week and twice on Sunday. If I'm the limited reactive guy, I would never buy this practice.
Yeah.
Because you're going to lose your butt if you do that. So that dynamic right there is a big one. That's a big one. And capacity is a big one. I would have to put those two at the top of the food chain.
And we work with a lot of startups, probably like 40, 50 new startups a year. And when I have like a young doctor who's like, I place implants, I want to get Invisalign to practice, they've been doing none of that, they've been referring it all out, they don't even look for it. I'm just like, you're going to crush it in this practice you're taking over. Like, yeah, marketing is important, but like, you're going to do so great just raising the revenue there, treat the team well that exists, maintain those relationships. Those doctors do so well when they're coming across that axis, like you were talking about, and going into a practice that was not looking at these things, was being reactive. So we love working with them because they're already going to be successful. And now we can help them target and bring in more of the patients they're used to seeing from their past into the practice that they're buying.
Yeah. I'll tell you what's interesting is from an individual practice, single location mentality, right? Nothing wrong with that. You want one practice, own and operate one practice, do 1.5 million, take home 400,000 or 500,000, right? Love it. Great job. Work-life balance. Everything's wonderful. Okay. You're focused predominantly on organic growth, right? Like building your ReCare system, maximizing treatment acceptance, scheduling efficiently, maximizing new patient generation, adding services, optimizing insurance reimbursements and fee schedule, right? All organic growth. But that's only one corporate growth strategy. It's just one of them. A whole nother category to play in is merger acquisition, right? And so that doesn't mean you go from one location to 10, but if you're in this practice and you're the comprehensive proactive dentist, okay, there are a ton of limited reactive dentists within 2 miles of you, 3 miles of you, okay? So what that means is the higher your annual patient value, the higher your APV, the more a patient is worth in your practice than a typical practice. The more targets you have, the more practices you can acquire. Whereas if yours is much lower, if you're not very responsible with organic growth and your APV is, 200-300, like that practice I was just talking about, I was on the phone with, their APV was like $300, like just 12 months ago.
Crazy.
And now they're like 980.
It's amazing.
Like that's significantly different, right? It's so if I'm 300, I'm below the national average, which means there are fewer M&A opportunities for me. But if I'm like one of my clients is 1640. Okay. Wow. If I'm 16th, now it's a fee for service practice in a very good area, right? But if I'm 1640, virtually I'm 3 times the national average. Virtually every practice around me is a target. I could essentially acquire any of them and make a lot of revenue, right? So, with that said, we're talking about new patient generation. Which equation in which environment is my patient acquisition cost lower? Right? Because if I market traditionally to acquire new patients, statistically, my patient acquisition cost is going to be substantially higher than my per patient acquisition cost if I buy this practice and I merge it into an existing practice.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Following.
So not to say which one makes sense. None of these people may want to sell. You know what I mean? Or I've had scenarios where we've presented offers and tried to acquire a target and the doctor didn't want to play ball and he wasn't interested. And, we went to marketing. We said, well, he didn't really have anything worth acquiring. He didn't really have a practice that an associate could buy and step into, and make a living. So his only option was to get bought, by a bigger practice and absorbed. But he wasn't interested in doing that. And I'm like, well, let's market. Yeah. And patients are going to have to go somewhere when he closes his doors. So let's get them that way, so, I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on as far as patient acquisition cost? Is there a general range? Is there a guiding principle there that says, typically on average, the patient acquisition cost for a dental practice is Y?
Yeah, so we have like 800 practices, and I like to use my own data. It may not be exactly what the national average is, but it's at least what we produce, and we look at it from real acquisition numbers. So depending on the market, a general patient acquired through digital marketing, we find to be around $150 to $250 to acquire that patient. Now, most of the patients that we do bring into a practice are fee-for-service patients, a majority, not all. They're looking for a quality doctor, a quality practice, and they don't care about what's on their insurance plan, or they don't have an insurance plan to look at. That's how they're finding them. They're seeking them out online. They're finding those as options. But depending on the type of patient, it can be higher. Like an implant patient, you're looking at like $250 to $350 to acquire an implant patient, but they're spending $5,000 instead of the typical maybe $900 per year. If you want a full arch, you might spend $1,500 to get that $30,000, $40,000 case. It's all relative, depending on the patient's value, but it's important that we can get those actual numbers. While the internet may support getting the cost per lead there to generate enough leads to where you can hopefully close them, it's then dependent on the practice to actually close. So if we send over, 3 leads at $75 a piece, and you don't close one of them to get that $200 cost per patient acquisition, that's going to be a problem in the long run. So it's about marketing, but it's also about how you can close, how the treatment's presented, how you're following up on that treatment that was presented, how you're closing that treatment, how you're getting payment on that treatment. Are you offering financing? Some of my doctors that are doing the bigger cases, like full mouth, full arch, they are having a little bit more trouble closing right now because the interest rates on financing are going up. And that's making it so that it's not as affordable to the same patients. So we have to look at a lot of different factors, from what's possible in your market, what's the competition doing, what are we doing as a special offer if we do need one, how are we handling those incoming leads, how are we following up on that treatment that's proposed, and what do we have as options for payment available to make sure it's affordable to as many people as possible. But ultimately, those numbers hold true across the country. You're going to be a little bit more expensive in more dense, like metropolitan areas.
I'm going to try to do some quick math there, because 150 to 200 is like average.
150 to 250, yeah.
150 to 250, that's low, man.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good.
Like postcards are known to be like $400 to $500 cost per acquisition when it's good.
Yeah. So that's really good. So I'm looking at this from two angles. So if I find a practice, and let's say, the practice has an APV of 500. Okay. You got 2,000 active patients, 2,000 active patients, times 500. That's $1 million practice.
Yep.
200 times 500. Got $1 million. You got $1 million practice. So let's say I do an earn-out arrangement of 15% for 5 years or 25% for 3 years, whatever the case may be. But the net result is that would maximize their potential. If I just go to them and say, look, I'm just going to buy your patients, and I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to note buy the patients. That amount could be quite a bit less than that. So, but as a general rule of thumb, $1 million practice, you've got 80% of that, let's say, give or take, is goodwill. And I'm going to buy the practice for 75% of $1 million. So it's 750,000. So I got 750,000 divided by 2,000 active patients is what I just acquired. Yep. That's $375.
And you have to count the attrition in there.
Take the attrition out. Sure. So that's $375. Now I've seen scenarios where that's roughly about the case. Now, typically, if that's on an earn-out arrangement, so you are going to pay more patients on an earn-out than you are if you just go and you buy patients. But if I'm just buying patient charts, it's going to be quite a bit less than that. But that's a pretty broad range there. I mean, you might be looking at a patient acquisition cost of anywhere from $100 to $400.
Yeah.
Let's say you take. So go ahead.
The first thing in here is that it's depending on the type of doctor that you are. A lot of doctors like to acquire because they know it's guaranteed patients for the most part. They know what they're buying. Mm-hmm. Marketing is a little bit more philosophical than that. There's no guarantees of performance. Now, there is less of a expense to start marketing and build up your funnel that you can, create predictable new patient flow. But you have to be willing to take that risk. And so it has to do with the doctor's risk appetite, how fast they want to grow, But you're right. Marketing usually will bring you a patient for less expensive than it does take to acquire.
That's interesting. What would you say? Well, and there's a variety. So basically, I'm looking at this from two angles. So if you want
one more thing about too, types of patients. A lot of patients come to us and say, I want implant work. When you go acquire a practice, you don't know how many of those patients are going to need implant work done that you're buying. We can say, hey, we're going to do only implant focused marketing. So you're going to be using your dollars the most effective to bring in the types of cases that you want. So you factor that in. That's a whole lot more value too.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think my way through this, because I would have to say, in the grand scheme of things, for the numbers that you just threw out were quite a bit less than what I'm familiar with. Because I've always seen that just traditional marketing tactics are a little bit on the higher side when compared to M&A. But I mean, just the example, and that's a common example. I mean, that one right there happens every single day, and your per patient acquisition cost is coming in under that, which makes a lot of sense. So one question I've got for you is, how do you feel like you're able to drive? Because you said direct mail is like $400 or $500.
Yeah, we see that direct mail, when done well, is usually about $400 to $500 cost for patient acquisition. If it's done not well, obviously it could be much worse, but I could say $400 to $500 if it's done well.
Yeah. Okay. And then I've seen, and there's a variety of different people have had a variety of different relationships out there with different marketing companies where they're paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month and not really getting anything from them. Right. Yeah. So that's going to drive that patient acquisition cost up quite a bit. You sent me 12 patients that I've had you for 9 months at $3,000 a month.
Exactly.
Right. So I agree with you. I think the M&A option is attractive because it's almost guaranteed, right? There are some risks there that we need to be familiar with. But if we're looking at, if my practice's goal is, say, look, I've got a 14 operatory practice, I'm only using 6. Okay. I need to fill up the other 8. So how do I do that? I need patients. I need providers and I need patients. Where can I get those providers and patients from? 2 options. I can buy a practice and merge it in, or I can have a really robust marketing platform to drive new patients to my practice. Yeah. So let's look at, and I'll let you take the marketing side. I'll take the merger acquisition side. What are the pros and cons, would you say, of having, let's say I go the marketing route. So let's say somebody's listening, they're having this dialogue with themselves right now. Which one do I do?
Yep.
Right. Obviously if I'm you, I'm definitely going to tell them to go the marketing route.
Not always. It really depends. We're happy to tell clients that they're not the right fit, whether it's for us or a certain thing that we do. Like on the marketing route, I'll give you the cons first.
Yeah.
For one, there's a chance it doesn't work. Even if you work with a great company with a great track record, there's a chance that it doesn't work. Now, when I say doesn't work, doesn't mean like it's not going to work for you. No, I usually mean it's not going to work off the bat. You might have to A/B test some of your offers. You might have to change how your landing pages work. You might have to add in some video content because your competitors are starting to add in videos in their content and landing pages to outcompete you. So usually digital marketing doesn't not work. It's that you might have to give it a little bit longer to work and see what's working and not working for you, given who you're going after, what your competition looks like, your market, the broader market in general. And so the biggest risk in digital marketing is, how much time and how much money will I spend before I really dial it in? And while we tell most clients, like, hey, you give a good 3 to 6 months, we should be able to dial things in really well. Some markets are different, very rarely, but it can be. So it comes back to that not guaranteed type thing. That's the biggest risk, is how much money and how much time do I have to invest before I'm going to dial it in to get about 5 times my money or more consistently. The biggest pro is that you don't have to take on a giant loan. You don't have to worry about staff or acquiring a new physical space or losing the goodwill or the attrition or losing the value of what you're buying off the bat. That risk that's involved there is that you can kind of ease into it. But ultimately, it's about that middle ground, because it's not like you don't have to spend all this money up front, but you do have to spend money. And it may be a little bit longer, or you might do a little bit more work on your end to work with your marketing partner to dial it in. Give them feedback on why patients aren't showing up, why they're not accepting treatment, because it's going to take you time and money, but it's going to take you work. Once you get it dialed in, you're going to be so happy you have this like scalable system, but you got to be willing to put in that effort. And so I think that's the biggest con, but also can be the biggest pro, is you're going to create something that's just for you.
Yeah. Here's another one is I don't run the risk of paying $400 for a patient that's only worth $200 in my office.
Yeah. Or let's say you're a doctor who's like, I just want to do implants. I'm sick of just doing the, crown and bridge stuff. I want to focus on this. You might acquire all these patients that are not your target type of patient. And so being able to focus on the type of patients that you want is a big value. And that's why most of our clients come to us. Like the thing we hear the most is, I want more implants. That's what we hear all the time. I want implants. Even better doctors are like, I want full mouth, full arch, all on 4, all on X, whatever they want to call it. And because we can target that, that's a big value to them, knowing the type of dentistry they're going to get to do and enjoy doing.
Yeah. And that's not just identifying patients, because 45% of the population needs implants.
Crazy. You know that.
Due to missing teeth, dentures, partials, whatever. So if I've got 1,000 patients, that means 450 patients in my patient base are candidates for implants. There's 450 implant cases right there that you've already got.
Yeah.
Right. That walks in your door every 6 months.
That's like just sitting in, like if you do your internal practice marketing, use your revenue well, your solution reach, your Next Health, your Modento, whatever you want to use. If you use that to market to your patient base, you're probably going to hit your smaller goals, but even your medium goals right with the patients that exist. It's when you have those bigger goals, you're going to definitely want to go externally.
Yeah. And here's one I think this is where a lot of people miss the opportunity is it's, well, why don't you do an email campaign or a text message campaign and try to identify patients who are interested in implants or ortho or whatever? Yeah, we tried that. We did that. Right. Okay. So I know you'll agree with this. I think you will. If you're just going to do it one time, don't waste your time. Right. Like marketing, I learned this from Chet Holmes, the ultimate sales machine. Right. Marketing is all about consistency, frequency, and reach. Like you got to reach your target market. No easier way to reach your target market than if they're in your practice already. Like you can't not reach them. They're there. Consistency and frequency. Like it's got to be often enough and it's got to be consistent over time. You can't just do it for like a month. It's got to be consistent over time. Okay. And then what happens is after a period of time, like, what is it he says that only 3% of your target market's buying what you're selling right now? 7% is thinking about it. 30% is thinks they're interested. 30% is neutral. And then 30% is definitely not interested. So consistency, frequency, and reach is all about making sure that your message is in front of them when they fall into that 3% category. So they choose you. And then I've seen this play out in my career where I have followed up with a lead for years, 3-4 years. I followed up with them and nothing. I got busy. I stopped following up with them. They called me out of the blue one day and said, "Hey, when you in town?" Said, "Let's talk." I went and sat down. We had a conversation. They hired somebody else. And it said they hired them. They weren't having great results, weren't happy. And they said, "When can we get started?" But the bottom line is like, I missed that opportunity because I stopped following up because I had this idea that, well, I have followed up for this long and I got busy and I just
start at bottom 30.
Yeah. So it's consistency is everything. So, it's not like you can just do, a campaign, 1 month and you didn't get any implant cases out of it. And so you don't do it again. Like do it every month for 12 consecutive months and then tell me what you get.
100%. And if you just do the math, like you said, they are there. And it's that consistency and staying on it. And for the time you might have to invest to do that on your own in practice, or the time you might invest with someone else to do that for you, the money's going to be there. Track the return, put some time behind it. To kind of just look at the numbers like we were, John. I have practices like that don't care about how they look. Because let's say you do have that consistency, you have that frequency, you have that reach, but then yes, they're in that top 3% and now they're going to compare you to someone else. You want to make sure you look the best. And that's for things like your reviews, how great your website looks, the videos that you put out there, how you represent yourself, your staff. Are you caring? Are you a high quality, high technology practice? You want to make sure you're covering all that too. I have a lot of practices who will say, "Hey, my website's just okay." But hey, if your website lasts you 5-6 years and you might spend $5,000 to build it, one patient over the next 5 or 6 years saying no to you just because they didn't like your website enough is the cost of a website right there. it's really good to get, it's really easy to get great returns in dentistry. We just really have to think about dentistry as a business and measure it like we are on this call.
Mm-hmm. One point of comparison. So as I'm looking at the merger acquisition option, obviously with marketing, it's not guaranteed. So there's a possibility that you could spend the money and get nothing for it. Don't have to go to the bank and get a loan. Sometimes there are some upfront costs like website development, that kind of stuff. But typically it's an ongoing cost. That cost is a lot lower. No risk of attrition. So you don't run the risk of, buying a big chunk of patients and then losing 50% of them. And then with marketing, you're going to see those results trickle in over time. So that would be, and that escalates over time, right? So you don't see the biggest impact in month 1 or month 2. It's generally month 3 and month 4 where you really start to see the benefit.
That's exactly right. There's some things that you might do in marketing that are pretty quick with return, like adding live chat to your website to increase conversions, or running ad campaigns like Google or Facebook. They're going to show you some pretty good results in the first few months. But then you might do some things like internal practice marketing or search engine optimization or your social media presence that are more long-term. And John, it could be 6, 12 months when I say long-term. When you overall factor both those in and giving them both the time that they need, that's when you should get to your good cost per patient acquisition. So there's some things that are going to perform better in the beginning, some things are going to take longer. But when you average it all out and dial things in, that's when you're going to get to the numbers that we talked about.
Mm-hmm. I'd also say that you can isolate specific procedures that you want to focus on rather than, just buying a big chunk of patients, and some of those patients may be candidates, some of them may not be. So you can attract specific cases, not just specific patients, but you can attract specific patients who are interested in specific cases. So It's a little more isolated, a lot more targeted. Whereas marketing, I would say marketing is kind of like a 9mm. And merger and acquisition is kind of like a 12 gauge.
Yeah, I like that.
I'd probably have to use that analogy. You can target demographics. Like if you want a specific demographic, a certain, target of a certain affluent neighborhood or an affluent area, or even a certain age range, you can certainly do that through digital media marketing. So you have a lot more control. So all of that together, when you're looking at marketing, you have a lot more control. You can be a lot more specific. You can isolate certain variables, and you can create a more predictable outcome. Is that fair?
That's exactly right.
The big benefit with merger acquisition is it's immediate. Like the patients are in your practice tomorrow. You got 1,500 of them, and they're all showing up over the next 6 months. Less attrition, so there is obviously a risk of attrition. Depending on the deal structure that you negotiate with the seller, you may have to get a loan from the bank. You may have a seller note. You may do some kind of a percentage or an earnout. You may have a blend, a hybrid of several options. Let's see. You can't necessarily target. It's not as targeted because you're getting all those patients. So you can't go in and say, I want these 50 patients, but not those 200.
Yeah.
So you can't, I guess you could. I don't know that I would, but you could go in and specify specific patients in a patient base that you want and just send letters and just reach out to those folks. But I've never been part of a scenario where that took place. So not as targeted. Is immediate, do have a risk of attrition. There is a guaranteed impact, but depending on how you facilitate the transition, it could be a very positive impact. Because merger and acquisition is one of, if not the riskiest business strategies that you can exploit. But I think in dentistry, we've got pretty good systems and strategies around that, and patient communication protocols and and putting deals together. I think the risk there is pretty low. So yeah, I would say this based on all the feedback so far. And I think that'd be a really good white paper to put together with marketing on one side, M&A on the other side. I think they need to be doing both. I think if you're not doing merger and acquisition, if you're not focusing on the organic growth and development of your practice and optimizing your practice and optimizing your fee schedule and insurance reimbursements and ultimately maximizing your annual patient value, put yourself in the best possible position to acquire practices in a close enough proximity, I think you're missing a lot of the growth potential that your practice has. You're just leaving that opportunity on the table. And you're still going to need to educate the market and your patient base as to what products and services you offer. You just acquired 2,000 active patients. They need to be educated on you as a provider, you as a
office team,
office, like it's
technology, services.
Yeah. So I don't think that you can merger and acquisition. That's one that I think that's a button that you can really push at any time. Mm-hmm. I don't think that you cannot have. I truly believe I don't think you cannot have a marketing component in place at all times. I think you're missing,
at the very least, internal. Like you said, like all these patients to educate. If you're doing M&A, I don't know how you don't have the internal marketing going to that patient base. Mm-hmm. External, there's probably going to be those gaps to fill that you're going to want to fill that the patient base didn't satisfy. But 100% of the time, the internal marketing seems like for M&A, like how can you not be educating that patient base you're acquiring?
Yeah. Yeah. And can you guys also, like, let's say I come to you and I say, hey, I want to acquire patients. Do you have a strategy or can you target dental practice owners? So if I said, hey, I want to do a merger and acquisition, can we run an ad or a series of ads that's targeting dental practice owners to let them know that there's an opportunity for a transition or a joint venture or a buyout? Or is that possible?
You can. The data's there. Depending on how wide your physical area is that you're targeting, the wider the target, the better it would probably work. The smaller the physical area target, the amount of people who would fall into that data pool are going to be so low, the systems may not deliver ads to that low of a data pool. But it's theoretically possible.
What about the lookalike audiences? What if I went to the ADA and I bought a catalog of all the dentists in Nashville, Tennessee?
How many would that be, do you think?
Yeah. What's that?
How many dentists in Nashville, Tennessee, do you think?
How big is Nashville, Tennessee?
How many dentists do you think are in Nashville, Tennessee?
What is it? It's 1,600, 1,700, somewhere in there.
So if you bought all of those, that might be a big enough pool to advertise to. It's right on the threshold. But then if you told Facebook, let's say, hey, find me everyone else who's just like them nationwide, you basically be able to find every dentist in the country within that second pool.
Yeah. But if you were in Nashville, you wouldn't be reaching out to all 1,700 of those anyway, because not all of those are merger candidates unless you're looking for additional locations.
That, and I don't know what kind of list it is, but they may be associates. They might not be owners of the practice as well. But there's some other tactics you could use, like LinkedIn automation, to go and attack them on LinkedIn through automated messages and generate conversations that might be better if you have that type of data.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I would say that'd be my recommendation there. I think you must. It's not a want; it's a must. You've got to have a marketing component in place. Any progressive practice, proactive practice is going to. And then obviously keep merger and acquisition as an opportunity in the forefront of your mind. I've got some folks that are much more proactive and progressive in terms of M&As. And I mean, we're like actively sourcing M&A deals like monthly, quarterly. Like we're sending out communications, trying to identify people that are interested in structuring some kind of a transition deal. Doing that every month, every quarter. Some are a little bit less proactive or a little less progressive. They might do it once or twice a year. But I mean, you can get great results doing that. But even if you're able to find, most recently, I think that practice has 1,680 active patients or something like that. Pretty affluent area. But even then, you've still got to educate those patients on the new culture, the new practice, the new website, the new doctor, the new staff, what products and services you offer, your hours of operation, how to get in touch with you, the reviews so that they buy in and they see the value, before they come. There's still a ton of communication that's got to happen.
Oh yeah.
Right. And if you've got a marketing company like Digital Resources to help facilitate that communication, your results are going to be exponentially higher. One error that I see a lot of people make is they and I'm guilty of this myself, they try to do it themselves. And it's, I've been told this many times by mentors of mine: automate it, delegate it, or eliminate it. And I mean, trying to absorb everything and do everything that yourself. On the surface, in the beginning, it might seem as though it's less expensive, but how much is it actually costing you in the long run? Like, if it takes you 5 hours to do that, and you spent that same 5 hours doing dentistry,
the ROI. And also what type of marketing too, like social media for dental practice. Yeah, anyone can do it. There's no real rocket science to social media. Create content, make videos, put as much out as you possibly can. Just be you. Like, social media is not rocket science. But when you start looking at, like, should I run my own Google ads, which I've seen doctors do it. I'm like, you could be spending $500-600 a month having a professional, someone that's all day long. All they do is Google ads, know the system, know how to bid, know how to build out ads, A/B tests. But you're spending how many hours a month worrying about your Google ads when you could be producing, paying someone to take it off you and be an expert.
Yeah.
And the other thing I see, John, is like, okay, we do hire a marketing person, but we want that person to do everything. Well, if you find someone who knows how to run Google ads, Facebook ads, do SEO, write blog content, do your social media, that's a unicorn. That $50,000 a year you're paying that unicorn, it's because they're not really a unicorn. They can't do everything at the expert level. They're just doing everything good or okay. So ultimately, companies like mine exist because you should be hiring a company who has serious experts in every area. And because you're only paying for a portion of that expert's time, you can get an expert in 9 areas instead of having to pay a full-time rate for 40 hours a week for all these different experts. You're paying for fractions. And that's why companies like mine exist, is to provide that quality. Just make sure that when you're hiring them, they're giving you those quality experts and you're taking advantage of it by looking at what's happening. How are my leads converting? Why are they not converting? How can I give them better data and feedback to make them smarter? Because even if I have the smartest people in the world in here, and we got 150 super smart people, the data that happens in the practice, why do they not show up for their appointment? Why do they say that no to that treatment that was proposed? That will make our campaigns even better for you. So that's why your time is best spent educating your great marketing company instead of trying to do the marketing on your own in almost all cases.
So let me see if I've got all of these down. So you guys, you have custom built websites.
Yep.
Okay. Social media management. So you'll actually manage the social media pages, make sure that there's current content going out. It's modern, it's branding the practice, it's engaging patients. Do you also do the engagement part of it? So if somebody comments on a post, you comment back and you kind of keep the dialogue going. Yep. And that, if I'm not mistaken, actually, I'm going to have you educate me real quick. The next one is SEO. So from SEO, seems to be one of those things that nobody understands. And so, anybody could virtually go out and say, I'm an expert in SEO and not know what they're doing. And I'm just, because most of the SEO companies that, when I talk to my clients and I look, say, where are you ranked on Google? And we're looking at their rankings and all that kind of stuff. And they're working with an SEO company, but they're like on the second page. And I'm like, if you're on the second page, you're invisible.
100%.
You got to get on the first page. So when it comes to SEO, correct me if I'm wrong, because this changes, the algorithms and all this stuff change over time.
Every year.
My understanding, the major factors that determine where you rank on Google, at the top of the food chain, it's reviews. It's number of reviews, and those reviews might be on Google, I think Google places more value on Google reviews than it does Facebook reviews, but Facebook reviews do help. So reviews are way up there. The number of platforms that you have, relevant platforms. So for example, if you've just got a website, you're not going to rank as high as somebody who has a website, Facebook and Instagram.
Correct.
The amount of time people spend on those platforms.
Right.
Which is why videos are so important.
Yep.
Because they watch the video and that has them engaged, and now they're on your platform longer. That makes you rank higher. I'd have to say those are the top three. Are there any other big features in there that really drastically impact a?
Yeah. So right now, the number one is website speed. That, as of March of last year, Google put out there. It was called the first contentful paint update. How fast your website loads is the number one factor in your ranking today. Number two, I'd put with reviews. Yes. You could still rank well without reviews, though. I have plenty of startup practices. We can get to page one, but it's going to make how you rank in the map section a little bit stronger. But your reviews won't affect how you rank outside the map section, like the section below the map. Mm-hmm. Website quality, like the quality of the coding language. You want to be like on a WordPress or a Webflow. Those do-it-yourself builders or some of those proprietary systems that doctors are sold onto, those don't have the cleanliness of the code that Google wants to see to rank above a WordPress or a Webflow. Social media, like you said, social media usage, social media engagement. And then at the core of it all, because all those are important, it's also what's in your website and what you're doing to your website. So have you identified the right keywords? Like if we're trying to rank for best dentist Nashville, but everyone's typing in top dentist Nashville, you better make sure to optimize your website for the keywords that are actually being searched and used to search. Number two, we want to make sure our website does have the correct optimization as far as the right content. We're blogging, we're adding breadth and depth to the website about these keywords. And then the last piece that has to do with the website, we call off-page SEO. And John, this is what most SEO companies that are underperforming or not performing at all is because they don't do this piece at all. Off-page SEO, let me actually back up. Every website has a domain authority, or what we can call a trust score. Usually, or it's from 1 to 100. Average practice is like in the 20s, which is not abnormal. It's normal for a dental website, trust score or domain authority. When you get other websites that have a domain authority in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s to link back to your website consistently, you're showing Google, hey, this website that's highly trusted over here is linking to me. Therefore, I deserve more credit, more trust, and higher domain authority, and you'll end up ranking better. Your domain authority is one of the number one things that ties back to how you actually rank on Google. So what we do is we do link building. We build 10, 15, 20 links a month on these high domain authority websites linking back to you. They're not on websites you're going to even know. They're not on high traffic ones. It's not Forbes.com or the New York Times. It's on these websites that are social bookmarking sites, blogs, directories, where we can put this content. We know it has a high domain authority. It's a few sentences to a paragraph and link back. How you do it has to be so delicate because if you build too many links, Google can get sketched out. If you don't have enough links, you never move up in your domain authority. So you have to have a good company that knows how to find high domain authority, high trust websites that are not spammy, where you can put really good, useful content, show Google that the content's relevant to you and your local area, the services that you offer, and build those links. When you're in areas like Nashville, LA, Chicago, Miami, New York, even areas outside of Nashville that might be not as metropolitan as Nashville itself, but growing cities, the competition's fierce there and you have to be link building. When you get to more rural areas or where competition's not that aggressive, link building is not as important because there's just less competition. But when you're trying to compete at the highest level, link building becomes ultimately necessary. So when you see companies, hey, I'll do your SEO for $200, $300 a month, they're doing everything probably before the link building. The link building is the most time-consuming and technical piece of real SEO and what really allows practices in really competitive areas to actually get the results that they need in terms of where the rankings are going to be.
When you do a lot of startups, right?
Yeah, a ton.
How do you do the market analysis too? Like if I'm a dentist and I come to you and say I want to do a startup, I'm looking at these three areas. Do you do an analysis of those three markets to tell me, and can you tell me which of those three markets makes the most sense based on what I'm trying to do?
Yeah, we do it a little bit differently than most like demographic studies. We're going to look and say, okay, well, in this city, you have maybe it's 7,000 searches per month happening for dental related keywords. In this city, it's going to be 3,000 searches per month, much less need according to who's searching. Or on Facebook, we have the average age here, or this competition here is like, we're going to do that demographic study through our digital means, which is a little bit different than how most do it, going, hey, you have 5,000 homes with this average income. Well, if you have 5,000 homes with average income of 100K, that's great. But what if no one's searching for dentistry? So we add that factor to it.
I got you. Okay. You just called me out.
What do you mean?
That's exactly what I do.
No, but that's so important. But what we layer on is how many people are looking for dentistry in those homes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If I've got a client that's looking to do a startup, I'll definitely go in and look at that market and the median household income and the national percentage of household income that's spent on dentistry, and just kind of, it's all statistics based, right? It's nobody's got a crystal ball, but if we can get an accurate picture of what, the next 6 to 12, 18 months is going to look like to get you to break even, then the better. But having that input, because you might have one market that 50% of the homes are searching dentistry and there's fewer homes and the income's lower, but another market that has more homes and higher income, there's smaller percentage of people searching dentistry, and the net impact is going to be different between those two. So
it's just another interesting data point, because you need the base of what you said, like every practice needs those things. We're just able to say, hey, here's how many people are searching, or hey, no one's searching for implants here. They're searching for a lot of Invisalign though. Like we can add that to it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's what a good CEO needs. They need people on their board of directors. So if I'm a dentist and I'm trying to assemble a board of directors to help me build a very robust, comprehensive dental business machine, whether that's one location, whether that's one big multi-provider, multi-specialty location, or that's 50 locations, I need a board of directors. And on my board of directors, I'm obviously going to have, I would hope, I'm definitely going to have a practice management advisor. I'm going to have a very comprehensive, robust marketing company and expert. I'm going to have an attorney. I'm going to have a CPA, probably going to have a practice broker, real estate agent. I'm going to have a robust board of directors so that when I've got deals and questions and things, I've got a team of advisors I can bounce those questions off of to make sure I'm pointed in the right direction. I mean, if I want the most efficient path from A to B, then to me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to reinvent the wheel and to trip over my own feet while I'm going in that direction.
I'm sure you see this. Like my doctors who go from one practice to 7 practices in a handful of years, that's what they do. Hey, Shay, I'm looking at this area here. Here's what I'm being told by my real estate agent. Here's what I'm being told by the practice I'm buying. Here's what my CPA says. Give me your data. Let me help factor this into my decision. And they're just, rinsing and repeat. They have this system they built out. They have the people they trust to put the data into the system they built out. And so I love those type of practice owners because they know what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. And here just a caveat to that is it's incredibly, incredibly important. If they had the end in mind at the beginning, then everything that we just said, they would 100% do. Because what they will realize, if they are kind of piecemealing their plan together along the way, they're going to get on step 5 or 6 and recognize that they made decisions on steps 2 and 3 that are going to prevent them from getting to 7 and 8. Mm-hmm. So, for example, like if I've got one really successful cash cow practice that's spinning off a lot of cash, and I use that cash to go buy 3-4 more locations, and I do that all within a short period of time, depending on the financial institution that I partnered with, they're going to cut the faucet off pretty quick, because that's a level of risk that they're just not willing to take on. Yeah. But if you can show systematically and predictably alleviate that concern for them and say, look, I bought this practice. This is what I did with it since I bought it. And I've got, digital resources, and we're, adding services, and, we're increasing our value per patient. And all of those things, like the organic growth is really happening. And they can see, okay, so you take your secret sauce from location number 1 and you've bought 3 more, and you're going to take that secret sauce and drop it in the other 3. Predictably, the same thing is going to happen in the other 3.
Yeah.
And as long as I see that happen, Now you're getting white glove service, right? You're not going to have any trouble getting to step 6, 7, 8, 9. But it's because you knew you were going to be headed in that direction. You knew you wanted that at some point. So you proactively made decisions to position yourself for that, so that you don't run into roadblocks and barriers down the road. That's a lot different scenario than, biting off an additional location before location number 1 is buttoned up, and now you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yeah. And it becomes a nasty kind of a dynamic.
It's much better to get all your systems in place, know how to just drop out of the next practice and continue on.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, and we'll kind of wrap up with this. I think I've taken you over our time here. What would you say what would be the key pieces of advice that you would give based on everything that you see? You've got a tremendous amount of experience and expertise, a lot of knowledge. What would be your top 2 to 3 piece of advice that you would give practices coming out of 2022 and going into 2023?
All right, let's see. Number 1, don't be cheap. As far as the marketing budget, and that doesn't mean how much you pay your marketing company. A lot of your budget should be put into ad dollars that you're paying Google and Facebook. So a difference between a $1,000 budget to pay Google and $2,000 is actually significant. It doesn't scale up 1-to-1. When you spend more, there's economies of scale that campaign performs better. So if you're like, hey, should I spend $1,000 or $2,000 per month on my budget to pay Google? Go for the 2, because that $1,000 risk that you're adding in there is going to make your campaign perform quicker and better, so significantly that $1,000 is stupid to think about. So number 1, I'm going to call it don't be cheap, but invest what you can and have it make sense. Number 2 is consider your marketing company, whoever you choose, a outsourced CFO, a part of your board. Treat them like a partner. Understand the data they're looking for, understand the data they should be asking you about, and ask them questions too. Always seek curiosity. Consider them a partner, treat them like a partner, because if they're a good company, they should be a partner to you, and they're just as invested in your success as you are, because they want to grow with you. And number 3, really break down the numbers. Take the time to understand what your marketing is profiting you and if your marketing is going in the right direction. So, hey, maybe your goal was, I want 10 more implant cases per month in the beginning, but 2-3 months from now, that changes. Tell your marketing partner the goals change. Look at how things are producing in the campaigns that you're going and say, hey, if we're running implants and clear aligners, maybe one campaign just not doing well. Let's cut it. Let's invest more here. Understand how the numbers are playing out and real return on investment, so that you can know, hey, if I'm going to buy another practice, or if I want to bring other types of cases or patients in the practice, how can I layer that system on there? But you have to have this system correct. So don't be cheap. Treat your partner like a partner, and understand the real return on investment on your marketing through doing the correct tracking all the way to the patient's end result, which should be them paying you money.
Fantastic. I'm gonna dovetail off of your 3 recommendations, and I'm gonna throw a few out there. First one I would say is don't fall asleep at the wheel. If you can't get new patients into your schedule, you need to be adding capacity. If you can't get recare patients into your schedule, you need to be adding capacity. If that means blowing out a wall and adding 2 or 3 operatories, that's exactly what it means, and that's exactly what you need to be doing. You cannot ever accurately measure opportunity cost. But what I can tell you is opportunity cost is the most expensive expense you will ever have. So add capacity. Practices with capacity grow. Practices without it don't. So have sufficient capacity, and then figure out how to fill that capacity up. And if that means, expanding your clinical suite, whether that is the owner doctor adding new procedures, or if that means bringing in another provider to provide those procedures. But I mean, a successful dental practice CEO is going to find out what patients want and give it to them the way they want it. We know they want convenience, affordability, and comfort. So they don't want to go to 3 different offices. They want to go to 1. And it's more comfortable. You've already earned their trust. That's who they want to do their dentistry. So if that means adding a GPR, or if that means bringing in an itinerant specialist, then by all means do that. And then certainly take advantage, of Shay and digital resources to help educate the market, the community, and your active patient base on what products and services that you have, and do that consistently over time. And then you gave 3, so I need to give 3. Think of a third one. Take advantage of M&A. I mean, those opportunities are everywhere. We sent handwritten cards out a week ago, and within, less than a week, I'd already gotten 2 leads and 2, meetings set up where I'm going to be negotiating an acquisition, a merger and acquisition with real estate for a client. So those opportunities are huge, man. And you've got to be consistent and do that over time, because a lot of people will see that and they're like, oh, well, they don't know what it would look like. And because they don't know what it would look like, they don't even want to entertain the discussion. Yeah, right. If you keep putting it in front of them, eventually they're going to get curious and they're going to say, oh, well, let me see what this is all about. Now, all we got to do is have a conversation with them. And then once you have a conversation with them, you can let them know, hey, there's very unique ways that we can do this that help you retain equity, make you a partner, that maximize your earnings. There's so many ways that you can structure those things to make it, mutually beneficial for both parties. So number 1, capacity is king. Number 2, comprehensive and proactive, robust clinical suite, and then recruit the resources that you need to maximize that experience, whether it is providers or marketing. And then number 3, capitalize on the M&A opportunities that are absolutely abundant. And I lied to you, sir. I got one more question for you.
Yeah, please.
There's something I'm not as familiar with, or I am very familiar with it actually, but two types of marketing that seem to be fairly new that I want to make sure that our listeners are familiar with. One of them is reverse targeting. Everybody listening to this has experienced reverse targeting. They just don't know what it is, probably. And then geofencing. Can you help us have a better understanding of what that process looks like?
Yeah. So let's start with geofencing, because actually all digital marketing has a form of geofencing in it. So geofencing, by definition, is the ability to target people by their geographic location. So when you run Google ads, you could put a 3-mile radius around your practice. When you run Facebook ads, you can target a specific zip code. When you do SEO, you can try and rank in your specific city. Almost all types of digital marketing has a way of geofencing to a specific area. Now, some platforms you can get more granular, like down to the size of an office. And some it's like you can only do a zip code or a city. Depending on the platform that you're in is how granular that geofence can get or how small that geofence can get. So it's just important to know, like, how far are your patients willing to drive? And make sure you're fencing out the area that makes sense. We usually say, depending on the area, 5 miles, sometimes it's further, especially for specialists who are doing higher end cases. That's usually a good geofence. Or you might want to call it like a 15, 20-minute driving radius in some cases as well. And you'll want to specialize that fence out around, because some areas you can get to quicker than others geographically.
Yeah. So if I've got a practice and they're building a huge, very affluent neighborhood with 5 golf courses on it, theoretically, I can draw a fence around that whole neighborhood.
Yep. Yeah, depending on the platform. Some platforms, like I said, you can do like the zip code of the city. But there are many platforms where you can literally draw a fence as small as you want.
Mm-hmm. Or even, Amazon's putting in a new warehouse or something, and they're offering their employees an insurance plan that you're in network with.
Yeah, well, in that case, you can actually go on Facebook and target people who say they work at Amazon. So no matter where they're at, or if you say, hey, let's say I want to do anyone in Nashville, Tennessee who says they work at Amazon, you can target people based on their employer through Facebook and Instagram. So that's a really cool piece too. And then with the reverse targeting, there's 2 ways to do it. Number 1, it's like the typical retargeting, where if you go to a website and you're going to get hit again because you've been on that website, maybe 30, 60 days, they'll continue to hit you because you've been to the website before. That's a form of reverse targeting. But another one is where I might take your 4,000 active patients or your inactive patients as well, the 6,000 patients in the database, take their names, emails, phone numbers, and put them into Facebook. And say, Facebook, go hit all these people with Facebook ads and reverse target them, because we have their data already, and hit them with the other services that you provide. Or if you just buy a patient base, educate them about the new doctor, put a 15, 20-second video of the doctor introducing him or herself, to all these patients via Facebook and Instagram. And now you're going to educate the patient base outside the emails or text messages you might send. You can hit them on other platforms too. So it's really great for M&A when you're doing those things as well.
And when I get hit with that ad, and let's say I get an implant ad, okay, and I click on that ad, what am I seeing when I land on the website?
So there's two ways to go about it. One way is that you never go to the website, that you actually click on the ad. It has you auto-populate your information, and it'll just send an email to the office right from the ad. It's called a Facebook lead form ad.
Yeah.
The other type is usually where they'll click on the ad and they'll go to a landing page. So we rarely want to send them to the real website because there's so much information. You want to be very deliberate in what they're seeing. So if they see an Invisalign ad on Facebook, you want them to click on it and go to a landing page just about Invisalign. And you want it to be a page where you can not only capture the information, but you can track back that it came from your Invisalign ad on Facebook, so you can give credit to the campaign. So a lot of times those landing pages will have special phone numbers or special contact forms where you can log that information and say, hey, if they came from this landing page, it's because they had to come from a Facebook ad campaign.
That's perfect. There's nothing more frustrating for me as a consumer than when I go to Google and I search something, let's say, in-home golf simulators, okay? And I search that, and then I pull up an ad, I click on the ad, and it takes me to like a page that's irrelevant. Now I've got to get, it's their website, but it landed me on the homepage where there's golf carts and all this. And now I got to go search for what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Like, you just made my job more difficult. So that's huge.
Facebook and Google and most of the platforms actually incentivize advertisers to make your ads more helpful. So the company you just mentioned that's sending them to the homepage, they're probably paying a lot more money per click than the company that's sending to a landing page just about the golf simulators, because Google and Facebook actually have quality scores on the ads, and that plays a role in the quality score.
Excellent. Fantastic. Shay, you have been insightful, my friend. I really appreciate the time that you spent with me today. I'm confident that we got a lot of really good information out there for folks. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, so I'm assuming that if I say, okay, Shay knows what he's talking about, I like him, Digital Resources knows what they're doing. I don't know anything about it. Can you just take a look and tell me, like, just look at what I got going on and tell me what you would do?
Yeah, we're always happy to do a discovery call. It's where we're learning about you, you're learning about us. We dive into your practice, do an analysis of where your patients are coming from, what type of patients you want, how much your practice can physically grow, and the whole 9 yards. And from there, if it makes sense for us to look at a type of plan together, we're happy to build that plan if we think we can meet or exceed the goals that you have. So if you want to check us out, yourdigitalresource.com is a great place to check us out. We have tons and a huge social media presence. So check out our Facebook or Instagram, learn more about the people behind the services that we have, because they're really the ones that make the magic happen. And then give us a call. Our website has our phone number, our email address, contact forms. You can learn a lot more, and we're happy to set up those calls with anyone.
Excellent. And I'll personally vouch for Shay and his team. They're actually working. I've actually engaged them in my businesses. So I certainly see the value and know that something needs to be done there. And so grateful for your input, grateful for your insight on our call today. If you've got any questions or want to engage Shay or reach out to him and bounce some stuff off of him, please feel free to reach out to him. And as always, more than welcome to reach out to myself as well. Shay, thanks again for your time today. And I will look forward to having you on again soon.
Yeah, it's super fun. Thanks for having me on, John. Really appreciate it.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
All right. See you.